It's a really interesting question. What is this thing we're calling a 60-year curriculum, and where did it come from? I want to start by recognizing Gary Matkin at the University of California, Irvine, because he brought me that term, and I really found it fascinating. I think it's important because we, as divisions of continuing ed and extension schools, are serving a lifelong learner, and we're serving learners who work in a knowledge economy. And if you think about the nature of the jobs, they're quite different than they were historically. And in fact, you're going to have to continue your education, not just skills development, but real knowledge learning over as long as 60 years. As educators, we have taken responsibility for a very long time for articulating curriculum. What is it that's going to make this learning work for a student effectively? How do we assemble the pieces? And today, we package that primarily as 2-, 4-, and 7-year curriculums, and occasionally majors within that. But if you look at the modern knowledge worker, that's insufficient. We've got to think about what it means to be ready for your next job for 60 years. So if we do that, and if we acknowledge that the most effective of these workers are what we call the T-shaped employees with wonderful problem solving, moral reasoning, communication skills, and some really saleable expertise, then you have to take responsibility as an educator for a 60-year curriculum. We're not going to abandon our 2, 4, and 7, but we have to take responsibility for a second. So if we're going to do that, what does it mean? And we've tried to articulate a couple of things that Harvard's Division of Continuing Ed is paying attention to. The first one is we're implementing a customer relationship management system, Salesforce.org in our case, with the idea that we have to be able to track our credentials and everybody else's credentials if we're going to help a student find their way through this curriculum. We have to have policy that's different than we have today. We have to have policy that lets us do nano credentials, which would be less than a course that might assemble into a part of a curriculum. Micro credentials, which would be more than a course but less than a degree, like our professional graduate certificates. The normal credentialing around our degrees, but probably also macro credentialing around this T-shaped employee idea where we assemble all of this and can certify that this student is capable of performing in these types of jobs. The other thing you have to do, and this is a mission-driven thing, is say we are committed as an institution to serve this part-time learner wherever they might be and at whatever time they have to learn, which informs how we teach. We also have to engage in market-driven data about these changes, the type of data the Burning Glass puts out on a regular basis on jobs. The other thing we can't do, and it's the hardest, I think, for higher education institutions, is we can't tell the learner where or when to learn. We have to give them both space and time shift for them to do it. So in summary, if we are going to define and serve the 60-year learning needs of these current learners, we will be predicting our future based on what they tell us, and we will be responsible for engineering and producing a curriculum that serves their needs from the beginning of their career to the end.